I'm back, and today I'm gonna be stupid. Stupider. Basically, I want to make, and I can look at it that way. An RPG. A role-playing game, not the other one. I know that someone's going to make that comment because it goes through my brain in the reverse. But yeah, I want to go about making one, and I might have mentioned this before or not, but I've tried designing one a few times now, and it tends to go horribly. So this time I'm setting myself a few limitations and try not to be a little crazy with it. So first off, God, I can't help but do that shit. I'm going to be making it an RPG Maker. MV specifically. Because one, I have MV, and two, brain, come on, work please. And two, MV specifically uses JavaScript, which I am very familiar with. So the first problem that we need to deal with is stats, realistically, because, well, I like mechanics. So RPG Maker specifically gives us 8 basic stats. HP, a resource stat that we'll just refer to as MP because that's its default name. Then you have 4 blank stats. Yeah. Agility, which is basically used to make turn order, and they have an inbuilt luck stat. Now, RPG Maker's luck stat basically just does a minor effect on status ailments being applied, but because it has a fixed effect, I'm just going to reference it here. But how many stats do we need in order to make an RPG? I mean, with what we have here, the only other one we need is attack. Technically, we could do without these two stats. You just need HP and attack. That's it. You need something to determine how much damage you need to knock someone out, and a means of inflicting that damage. Turn order is not necessary. You could just say, the player always goes first. Or, the player always goes first unless a flag is set. MP or a resource is basically just needed for special actions. And that's pretty much all Mario... sorry. Something's distracting me there. That's essentially all that, like, Paper Mario has, is health, flower points, and attack. There is technically a defense stat, but most characters don't utilize it. If we want to have magic, we need a magic stat, so we can basically just say magic is a stat that we want, because it's an alternative attack stat, really. And then you go, well, don't we need a defense stat? And the answer is no. Because how defense typically works is if you're in a low stat value, like Paper Mario as I mentioned, you basically have a formula of the move's power times the attack minus defense. And this works alright until you start getting into like really high numbers. Because once the numbers start to get higher, the effectiveness of defense degrades. So you then have this alternate formula of attack divided by defense. This has a different problem, magnitude. As attack and defense increase, the relative distance between the two numbers drops. So it's the same issue. As the stats get higher, these two formulas become less effective. So like, for example, you got 5 over 10, which is equal to 50 over 100. These two are the same. But if you were to increase the stats relative to each other, you'd have like, well, that's a 5-point difference. So if you were to continue with a 5-point difference here, you'd have 95. Over 100. These two values are definitely not equal, even though it's the same distance. And that's why attack divided by defense doesn't work. So we definitely don't want to do that formula. So then there's one that I came across from Monster Hunter of all things, which is... I'm just saying Monster Hunter because that's where I remember seeing it. Ugh. I am doing terrible drawing with the mouse. Then times brackets 1 minus d divided by... We're just going to put a random letter in here. Y. Now this one may look pretty complicated, but I'll break it down. P is the power of the attack multiplied by the base attack value. And then what we have their current defense of the target divided by a relative, which is a static value. So it never changes. Y is always whatever Y is. But Y is a value relative to the maximum defense value. So let's say the max defense value is 500. In that case, Y would equal, say, 1000. That means at max defense, all damage is halved. That's what this equation does. Now, the -1 simply inverses the value, so if defense is 0, you take max damage. Now, what this basically does is it turns defense not into a fixed value, but into a resistance percentage. So as I said, when defense is 0, %100% damage. When defense is max, it reduces the damage. I don't know why I'm drawing that part out. But you can basically skip this step and just go, oh, your defense is a resistance and it always equals a percentage. And if it's a percentile resistance, we don't need it over here in these stats, because these are limited values. We only have these 2 slots to spare. If you put one in for a defense value, you need one for magic defense as well. And that's where the problem comes in. Because if you have a single defense value, it makes defense very effective. I know that may seem a little odd to think about, but how do I put it? It's a versus metric, so you have attack versus defense. It's a 1-to-1 relationship. If you have magic and it also versus defense, it means that defense being used twice makes it twice as useful. That's why typically magic versus its own unique stat. Magic defense. We already have an example of where this is a problem that most people are familiar with. Pokemon. In Gen 1, magic and magic defense were the same stat. Special. And it made special the most important stat in the game. Second only to speed. So, yeah. So if we have a defense stat and a magic defense stat just as resistances, we can make a damage formula with them in mind, and we free up 2 slots. And this is where I'm getting to, like, territory of classic RPGs, because if you think back to, like, D&D, the attributes they have... Sorry, my brain is not keeping up with me at the moment. They have physical stats, mental stats, and social stats. So, attributes, I believe they're called. So there is the physical of the character, the mental of the character, and the social. And they're sort of balanced. Physical, you have strength and dex. Mental, you have intelligence and wisdom. And the social stat is just charisma. The 6th stat, vitality, is necessary for all characters. Well, constitution. Probably should put a H there, just... But constitution is used by everyone equally, so we'll just mark it over here. But the other name for it is vitality. So that's the split of stats there. If we then go to another game that I've been playing recently, Fallout. Sorry, it's going to take me a little bit. They have slightly different stats. At charisma, there is still charisma. But in their case, Fallout has what's called the special attributes, because the name is made up of each of the stats that make up the word special. So you have strength again. P is precision? Yeah. which is an accuracy modifying stat, which would go in physical, because it's used for guns. E is endurance, which is their equivalent of constitution, so it goes over here. A is agility, which is again the dex stat, does the same thing. C is charisma, I is intelligence, and then their other stat is luck. So that gives us the basic rundown. There's always at least one mind, one social. Sometimes there's two. Intelligence and wisdom are kind of similar, and I feel the reason they're split in D&D is to make sure that the two stats, neither one of them becomes overpowered. Again, referring back to a stat that is used for too many different things becomes unbalanced. So we can basically say that attack is the equivalent of... Sorry, I'm trying to clean my lines as I go. Strength. Agility and dex are the same thing. Magic is our mind stat. And that leaves us with room for two others. We know we want a social stat, and charisma is basically an easy one to do. Or charm. And then we have room for one other stat. Now again, we don't need to use all of our stats here, but it's easier to try and think of what we can do. Now I don't need a precision stat because technically there is an inbuilt accuracy and evasion stat in RPG Maker, so realistically whatever we want in here, our mystery stat as it were, needs to be something that has function in and of itself that's unique. I'm trying to think of like what I was thinking, because I was doing this thought process yesterday before I called it a night. I believe I was referring to the stat as soul, basically a sort of empathy stat. So my idea here is charm is your ability to influence others. Soul is your ability to empathize with others. So one is getting what you want to happen, and the other is the ability to read the emotions of other characters. So you can be good at influencing people but have no idea how they feel, or you can be terrible at influencing people but you can read them like a book. And then luck, I might change what that is. Not the mechanical side of it. It's still going to work like the luck stat does in RPG Maker, but give it a different name to kind of remove that stat. And I have one in mind. Gut, or guts, will. I don't know if I'll stick with the names that I've done. But this is basically a survival stat. So it references crit, crit chance. Crit damage. So annoying that damage and defense start with the same letter. Yeah. Crit chance, crit damage, and survival. Oh my god, trying to write little letters. So that's kind of what the gut stat is for. I could call it will, or any number of things, but I'm just going to refer to it as gut for now. But it's going to do just a bunch of little things in the background, rather than having luck tied to that. So it's kind of the survival stat, but also like, yeah, the crit stuff as well. HP you can basically think of as vitality. And then MP. Because it's a resource stat, I might just refer to it as action points. Which then makes the stat name that I need to use for its stamina. I believe the abbreviation is typically STM. So just to kind of clean things up, you have vitality, which gives us our HP. Stamina, which will give us AP. Our offensive stat, which would be strength. Our magic stat, which is mind at the moment. Again, I could change the names at any time I want. The soul stat. Charisma. I swear that's the shorthand for it. Agility, which, again, there's limitations. We have to use this stat. And instead of luck, we have the gut stat. So for designing any of the characters that I want to have, including the player character, I'd assign a value out of 10 for each. There's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you need a value between 8 and 80. The midpoint would be 5 times 8, which is 40. Relationship to X. I'd want it to be greater than 40, but less than 80. I'm just thinking of like point assignment. Because if you grade them out of 10, it gives like a starting thing to work with, so... The midpoint between these two would be 60... 60 divided by 8... I think the closest is 56, which is 7/8. So that would be 7 with a remainder. That's too high. So I want it less than 56. What's the midpoint between them? 16 divided by 6 is 16. Half of 16 is 8, so 48 points? Yeah, that would be 6 in every stat. Nah. Probably less than 48, because I don't want them to have 6 in every stat, but I don't want them to have... maybe 45. So that would be 5 6s, and the rest of 5. 5 6s, 3 5s, no. If you go 42, that's 2 6s and 6 5s. Yeah, that should work. So you have a 42-point assignment. And each stat has 10 points to allocate. That works. Okay. I guess this is kind of like me just like going through my thought process and stuff. I'm definitely not sure on this aspect though. Do I need a level up system? Because I feel like this is just me being me. I don't want most of my stats to increase. Like, I don't want to increase strength at all. The only stat really that you'd want to increase over time, because you have increasing damage and just duration of fights, would be HP. This is kind of similar to like D&D. HP increases every level. So you need to increase HP incrementally. But your other stats, you could set them at the same value. Yeah, not set them. Have them at the same value at the start of the game as you do at every point. So the question is, do you need a level up system? Well, characters do get stronger over time. They improve, and there are two metrics. There's stats, or number go up, and then there are skills. What would be the correct word? So you got vertical growth and lateral growth. So as a character increases in skill, they get... well, this point up here is... stronger. I can't write. So this is really the goal. And this would ideally be the start. Low stats, few skills. And the goal is essentially lots of skills and high stats. Now, in some games, you start with basically none, and you will go this way. Hang on, I should use a different color. You go this way. You have a lot of stat increase, but not a lot of skills. Why is that arrow there twice? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm feeling more inclined to go this way. Increase skilled over... It's done it again. Oh, that's why. Oh well, that's fixed. So yeah, we've got increasing stats, not a lot of skills, increasing in skills, not a lot of stats, and then your other option, which is to go a balance. You give them a lot of skills and a lot of stats. Of course, that arrow usually goes like this. Where your stats increase and then you slowly start getting less increments over time, but gain skills faster. So I can think of an example of the green one here. So an easy one for that would be... Sorry, Paper Mario. In Paper Mario, you level up, and the only stats you can increase are HP, FP, which is your flower points, and BP. And you can only increase one of them. So each one of these is technically a stat, but BP directly relates to skills. It's the skill stat. Because the more BP you have, the more skills you can have. FP is just your resource stat, and HP, of course, is, well, HP. This is a very skill-orientated game. You do have an attack stat, and there is a defense stat. There's even a luck mechanic. But your attack only increases when you get better weapons, and your defense is only able to be increased through buffs. But you have a fixed number of levels, so you only can put so many points into each stat. You could go for a low skill build and end up in the red line, by putting all your points into HP and FP. But you'd still be... But ideally, Paper and Thousand Year Door both go for high skill, low stat. Then our next one to look at, which I don't know which one it would fall under, would be Dark Souls. Dark Souls is, instead of your level going up and you increase stats, you increase a stat and your level goes up. So the relationship is reversed. The thing is that Dark Souls doesn't have a lot of skills in it unless you're playing a mage. So it's definitely a red. But it is stat over level. Your stats determine your level, not your level determining your stats. And so there's kind of an example of like the two extreme, not really the two extremes, but two different dynamics. Now, Dark Souls is basically, you can either get better at the action side of things, or you can put points into levels in order to reduce the difficulty. Whereas Paper Mario, it's you level up in order to increase the range of skills that you have. You increase your diversity by leveling up. So the question then comes down to is, do you need leveling up at all? Because I feel like the blue is kind of the Goldilocks zone for a lot of people. Red is a very boring place to end up. Dark Souls gets around that by being an action game, or having an action focus. And I feel like green forces you to be creative, but gives you more tools to do so. But any one of these three are optimal. The one that you don't want to have is straight up just stats and you have no skills. Or one that stops somewhere before you get into this area, this general half of things. We can basically break down a level up into XP, and then you get a level. And the analogy I like to use is weightlifting. I am just drawing with a mouse, so I don't care if I'm being great with my drawing at the moment. My tablet is being a sensitive little thing again. So when it comes to weightlifting, you will do a certain amount of reps and sets with a set of weights. And then after you've gotten used to those weights, you will then increase the weight. So you can think of it as you get used to it, then the weight goes up. Similar to you're getting used to the experience, and then when you increase the weight of it, you've gotten stronger. Your strength has increased. I know it's a very gamified look at it, but we're talking about game design, so... So you can kind of look at it like that. The individual stats increase, and we're just putting a number to represent the increment. And that's kind of what level ups are. They're not, you're getting stronger, it's you've gotten strong enough that it is a noticeable increment, and the experience is just a representation of that slow growth. But the thing is that we don't need to do it for levels. We could do it for stats. So instead of having a unified level up system, all your stats could increase by experience. And we have examples of that. The biggest, probably the one that I know the best for doing this is Final Fantasy II. And for anyone who's seen anything with Final Fantasy II knows that system breaks very quickly. So in Final Fantasy II, in order to increase your defense, that is a very bad D, you need to get hit. So the best way to increase your defense quickly is to have your party members beat each other up, rather than relying on the enemy. And as you take damage, your defense increases. Of course, the system has a method in it to try and prevent you from just grinding a single stat, and that as your overall stat increases, your level increases and it becomes harder to raise other stats. But as you raise other stats, some stats begin to lower, if I remember correctly. Again, I haven't played Final Fantasy II myself. I just know like a general idea of it, but that's the kind of issue that you run into with that system. The other game that I know that does something similar to that is Quest 64. Now that game I have played. In Quest 64, each of your stats have an individual experience bar. Well, not really a bar, you just see the experience percentage, and they go up by you doing certain things. So in battle, using spells increases your total MP. Moving in battle increases your agility, taking damage increases your defense. So you have to actively do those actions in the game. Unlike Final Fantasy II, because you only have a single character, you can't really grind them as much, and it does seem to balance because you have an overall level in the back end of the system somewhere, and that balances how much experience doing certain actions against certain enemies will gain. So you can't just grind against the lowest level enemies forever. But if you go into battle and have like low agility and move around a lot, you will gain agility experience much faster. Now again, Dark Souls does the same thing here. Your experience points, or souls, since experience and currency are the same thing, get turned into stats, and those stats increase your level. So again, it's a very similar thing, but they've detached the, instead of having an individual action raise an individual stat, your total experience points can then be used to increase any stat. So it changes it from an individual currency to a universal currency. And I think that's probably the biggest problem when you do this. If you have XP for strength and XP for intelligence, if you focus only on one, you can't raise the other. Dark Souls system, you have XP, and you can raise any of them. So this is universal. What happens with a level up is something slightly different. You have your XP, and the level. So XP goes into the level, level increases strength and increases intelligence. But if I'm not increasing my strength or my intelligence stat, then why do I have a level? The answer, funnily enough, ties back to experience points. So let's say, for the sake of what we were talking about earlier with my stats, that the only stat that increases is HP. So you have increment 1, increment 2, increment 3, and so on. The distance from 1 to 2 is X experience. What should the increment from 2 to 3 be? Now, you may say, oh, X, but that's not the case. The distance here should be greater than X. I went to all that trouble. And it should always be greater than X. Because if it's X, well, we'll make this easy to understand. Let's say that we have a simple enemy. And it grants Y amount of XP. Oh my god. A number of increments of Y will equal a level up. And once we've increased our HP that one time, one of two things needs to happen. Either the amount to increase a level, X, goes up, or the value of Y goes down. So either the cost goes up or the amount of value that you get goes down. Some games do both. This is the concept of depreciating experience points. It's an anti-grinding method. So as you fight more and more of these slimes, their experience value drops. It basically means that eventually you will reach a point where you can't level up anymore, and this is to make sure that over the course of the game, as the difficulty increases, your level, which I will do in green, stays parallel to certain markers. So let's say that there is a boss at this point. The experience curve should make sure that, that if you grind, you will eventually run to a point where you can't grind past that. And then you can grind again, and then you'll fluctuate back. So you always stay on the difficulty curve. So that's why you have increasing experience and depreciating, increasing cost and depreciating gain. So Y will go down as your level increases. Now, we don't necessarily need to do this, but how you do this is you calculate it via level. So let's say the monster has a level. So this is M level versus player level. So Y would equal the base times, and we'll just use the increments there, the monster's level divided by the player's level. So if the monster and player are the same, 1 and 1, then the base is going to equal Y. If the player is twice their level, 1 over 2, you get half the experience. Now again, this formula is just a simple example, but you would have to do a little more than that. Because, well, as I mentioned earlier, sorry, when you do division like this, when the numbers get larger, the distance of the magnitude messes everything up. So technically we would have formula more like this. The difference between M minus P over, say, 100 that's probably not the way that you do it, but you would divide it. So be 2M minus P. So if M equals P, the monster's level and the player's level are equal, then it would be 1 over 100. That's not right. I don't know if you'd actually divide it, actually. But if they're equal, then you get the default experience. And for every level up higher you get, the less general experience. There has to be a divider. I can't remember how you do this formula correctly at the moment. But it's something like the magnitude, you double that, and then the player's level and the difference between them. But I think you do multiply the player's level somewhere and divide it by something. I forget. Yeah, I'm not remembering the math. But yeah, this is like the general stuff for like experience points and everything. But this brings us back to the whole level up question. Do we need to level up? If the only stat that's increasing is HP, and no other stat is doing it, we could just buy HP levels. And that's it. We don't need to do anything else. So really the only reason you would need a level up system is to track incremental growth, or if you're using it in the damage calculation. But since I'm not doing either, I could probably get away without doing levels at all. It's not a necessary thing of an RPG system at all. It's just a useful tool because, it creates a sense of scale. Just move that. So scale is really just a means of like reference. So a level 5 monster is naturally weaker than a level 20 monster. An A rank adventurer is better than a C rank adventurer, for example. It's that nice thing in our monkey brain, like going, hey, this is a higher number, therefore it is bigger. It is better by comparison. That's all levels really come down to. Is giving a sense of scale at a glance. So instead of looking at all the different stats and skills that they have gotten, you equate this whole thing to level. And so when you see a level 8 character, you go, they are better than, say, a level 3 character, because this level 8 character has better stats, more skills, and stronger skills. Whereas the level 3, it's like, they're still starting off. Their stats are lower, they have access to less skills, and they have more restrictions. Even in D&D, where your stats don't increase, a level 8 mage has more spell slots than a level 3 mage. And this is the same thing with like doing like adventurer ranks, whether you do the level system or the medal system. It's a shorthand to say this person is more experienced and generally stronger. So this is the other useful thing of levels. God, that is a terrible circle. So let's say you have a player character and they are level 5. And then they have a monster that they're facing. And that monster is, again, I'm reusing numbers, level 8. You basically tell that the monster should be stronger than the player character. But in game mechanics, the player could beat a level 8 monster. Because the player has tactics and other things that give them an edge. So, level 5 being less than level 8 doesn't mean that the player can't win. And I think that's kind of an issue of levels in itself. This is why D&D, I think they uses a thing called, what is it? A difficulty rating system? I think it's challenge rating, or CR. I don't remember how it works or anything, but basically a monster has a CR of X, and that's their difficulty. They may have the stat block of a level 8, but their CR might be 3, because they don't have a lot of skills. And so that's kind of another layer that goes on there. So you could basically think of it as monsters have... Sorry, this is going to be very crude. A danger level. So this would be average. So you'd have a danger level of like dangerous to fretless. And so if the danger value is, say, here, this circumstance is easy to understand. Because even though they're a high level, they're not as threatening. Conversely, if the danger level would be up here, well, let's just say the player's going to have a bad time. And this is kind of where the messed up nature of scale is, and giving levels is you're essentially saying that a level 5 and a level 8, the danger value is somewhere higher than average. And this is kind of where danger becomes also like a hard thing to... Because let's say... our level 5 is now a level 10. The danger rating is naturally going to slide down. And so maybe it's more of a average. Again, level kind of indicates this. As your level increases, the danger of monsters decreases. But it doesn't necessarily mean that a level 8 monster is equivalent to a level 10 hero. And it's where things get like all weird, because it's like, you know, we have a warrior here, but what if this slime was a wizard? Now it casts spells. And notoriously, melee characters are bad against spellcasters, and now we've got a whole new dynamic of scale. So, even though levels are useful for this type of thing, I feel as though the player having an immediate gauge of like, oh, I'm a higher level, I should win. Or, oh, the danger rating is equal to my level, but you're a terrible matchup. Or conversely, you're a low-level character and it's a high-danger situation, but you have the perfect set of skills to deal with it. This isn't just like a danger of like level or like danger indicators, because you don't know for like every scenario, and you have to create like a proper system to give like accurate information. You would have to have so much like background stuff doing comparisons. So I think scale just using like levels is silly. Like, sure, some people find it useful. I think it's potentially deceptive, particularly if you rely on it for like a full calculation of, not full calculation. Oh, brain. Of like a full description of how things should go. I usually think the best indicators of how dangerous an enemy is to you potentially is to know their health, their damage, resistance, and the enemy's skills. Oh my god, I cannot write with a mouse. I need to get more practice. These four things are more important than knowing what their level is. You know their HP, you know how long the battle is likely to take. You have an idea of how much damage they do. You know how much, how quickly you may fall in battle, and how many hits you can take. You know what they resist. You can make a strategy and use skills that are more effective. Basically, better resource management. You know what skills they have. You know what kind of attacks to avoid or look out for. For example, if they have a one-hit KO. Why am I putting a 1 there? Oko means one-hit KO. If they have Oko skills, if they have high damage skills, if they have healing skills, all those things are hugely important information. I would rather all of this over knowing their level. Because these values are far more important, and a level is just an approximation of them. So is CR rating or threat level or whatever you want to call it. These are more important. You can't equate these two things together. They're not equal. Because damage is complicated because you have a basic attack value and a magic value, and they modify what the skills do and how much damage they can deal. Resistances vary monsters of the same level can have wildly different HP values because they're designed either to be like a pain in the neck or they're a boss monster, which, again, boss monsters can have the same level, but are several times stronger because they're a boss. So this information is far more useful than giving a level. And if the player has a level, it basically implies that, oh, a level 1, oh, let's go, a level 5, my god, I can't write. A level 5 is equal to another level 5. But again, not true. One level 5 may have way more damage, or they may have a wider range of skills that makes them more threatening because they've got like one-hit KOs, or they can imply statuses that basically lock the other character out because they have no natural resistance to them. Heck, even if you don't get into like all that nonsense, mages versus knights. Give me a sec. When you get to mages versus knights, mages at low level are pretty useless. They have low stats and they don't have all their spells. Knights, on the other hand, are great at low levels because they have high stats starting off, but they don't gain a lot of skills. So as they get later into the game, mages' stock goes up, while knight's stock unfortunately goes down. And the whole reason for this is just knights, they work well in the early game because they have like the good defense. Nothing has like a lot of skills that can get around it. But as the game goes on and more skills become available, the knight has to basically deal with all your different elements, like fire, lightning, and ice, which I am going to do a terrible snowflake for because snowflakes are horrid to draw. Like, you have all these different elements which they don't have natural resistance to. And then, of course, you know, spellcasting in general is the bane of any knight. Because the magic stat doesn't work. Because magic I am drawing a really terrible shield. It's like it's impossible to tell what the hell I'm drawing. Magic is generally better than defense because defense isn't a counter to magic. Magic defense is. So this is why the knight kind of just goes down in value as they level up. this is a whole lot of scrolling to basically explain that using levels to indicate strength is a very slippery slope. Like, if you don't have stat increases and you only have skills, the knight drops faster in value because knights don't usually learn a lot of skills. A lot of their starting brain, a lot of their starting kit is just that. They start off with everything that they need, and as the game goes on, they don't have a lot of skills to basically deal with all the new things that are brought in, all the new elements, the increasing power of magic, status effects. And as a result, they begin to drop off in value, and mages profit from all of these things getting added. And there's just a natural reason that everything goes in like that. The game wants to add complexity as you go. So yeah, relying on scale as a design mechanic I don't like, and I don't think I will do levels. So this then brings us to probably the part that I haven't thought out too much yet. Story or plot. I don't know what's gonna happen. I haven't really decided on stuff, but branching storylines is something that I like the idea of. The problem is that all of them need to come back in at the end. At least as most people consider. But then you could have... the potential is... there are some games where suddenly... you just end up out over here and it's like, what the hell happened? I don't think there needs to be a definitive ending to a game. And I feel like the story that I'm going to be going for is not so much that linear thing and more like you have character A, character B, C, and so on. And these characters have individual storylines. Sometimes they will cross over and intersect, sometimes they won't. These intersection points are where characters interact. And I feel like you could make a game in RPG Maker that is just this with party members. Now I'm getting into territory where I haven't thought as much about this. This is just my early thoughts on stuff and just various things that have been rattling around in my brain. But I feel like the party, the characters that you can take around with you, you're gonna have the player, of course. Jeez. Why did I even bother writing it down? Like that. The party is gonna be like 1 to 5 max. At any given time. Which means that I need at least 4 characters or others. And with that logic, there are then 4 storylines. And that's if I'm not doing any branches. I think that's complicated enough. I don't know. Like, I haven't really done, like, setting in any, like, determined value just yet. I have an idea of, like, how I want to do skills and stuff. But I think, like, until I nail down this aspect, I really shouldn't go too crazy just yet. Ugh. I need to take a break for a sec. I'll be back in probably just a moment. I need to, like, get up, stretch, and do a couple of things. Okay, so basically you would have I cannot draw a circle to save my life. You have 5 characters. The player character, who I've put with question mark, and then A, B, C, and D. Each has their own storyline, and then there's the main plot for the player character to go through. So they each have their own stories that the player can interact with. But there's, like, you know, the choice to interact with them, and those interactions cause their stories to go in different directions. So we don't get too complicated. Like, there may be other characters, like F in the background here, but they are... Let me get the party stuff out of the road. But their relationship between us and, say, D is wider, so we have less effect. So I don't want to focus too much on the side characters and focus on the main group, as it were. So if the player character is a sort of random character, we don't know what the player will build them out as. Then we kind of need to decide on what roles A, B, C, and D would take. If we want the player character to be flexible, we would need to cover our archetypes. A damage dealer, a tank, or a defender. A mage, and you know what? There's an easier symbol to do for mage. Usually the fourth one in this dynamic would be a healer. Like a priest or something. I believe this is the symbol that's often used. Because if you do it this way, it means that if, say, the player focuses on just themselves, C and B, then the player can take over the roles of... My god, I cannot draw today. Attack and heal. If for some reason the player is all on their own, then they have to take on every role themselves. Attack is kind of tied to the strength stat. Defense doesn't have a stat at the moment. Magic is the mind stat. And healing I'd probably put to soul. I guess I do have one. The gut stat. Survival and crit. So if we do that, I could probably start putting together, like, stat values for each of the characters. I'm trying to come up with characters on the spot, and I don't have, like, any idea who they are or what they're like. So vitality, stamina, strength, mind, soul, charm. I'm running out of space. Agility and gut. Now the player character, we don't know what these stats are going to be. but we know which one each of them is going to be best at. I worked out earlier that there was 42 points. So we took 10 out of each. So let's do them one at a time. Okay, the melee character, since they're going to be the opposite, we're going to have basically a fast attacker. So we'll put 8 into agility, whereas we'll put a 2 here. So that's 18. We don't want the melee character good at magic, so we put a 1 there. And then charm, soul and charm. Empathy and ability to... I'd probably say they're a bit of a dunce, so put a 1 in soul. Charm is the ability to influence others, so we'll give them a 6. So that there is 26. We've got 16 points left across 3 stats. We don't want their gut stat to be too high, so if we put a 7... what was it we had? 16, so that leaves us with 9. So a 4 in stamina and a 5 in vitality. I want to put a 6 in vitality, and we'll change their guts to a 6. That means these two, ideally, the mage should have a 4 and a 5. I'll give them an 8 in charm for good influence. The defender probably has a 7 in charm and at least a 6 in empathy or soul. The mage, I'll give them a 3. Maybe a 3. I don't know what I'm going to do with some of these stats, to be honest. So in terms of turn order, I'd probably give the mage a 5 and the healer a 4. And then a 6. Okay, so what do I have left? 10, 20, 29, 13 points. Seven takes up more than half. So I can probably do a 6. That leaves me with 8. I think that adds up right. Hang on. 10, 20, 30. I've got 1 point too many. Now, I will change that. Make it a 5. And then put the extra point into stamina. $10, $20, $30. So I've only got 12 points left to put between them. So that's 1. So that's 11 points left. Go 7 and 5. Actually, I'll go 4. Give them an 8 in stamina. Okay, and so then we've got 28. So that's 14 points left. Give them a 5 there. $9 points left. $6 and then a 3. That's fine. Okay, so that gives me an idea of like the characteristics of each character. So like, looking at C, their charisma is high, but their empathy or their soul stat is low. So they would think highly of themselves, but are not very good at reading other people. And Guts would suggest, or will, that they're kind of wishy-washy. So they don't stick to their... If you were to, like, push them to make a decision, they'd likely cave. If you had better charisma. So having a single point more charisma than them, and they would cave to whatever demand it was. So it's not that they're impressionable, but they would easily fall to their own convictions if someone was able to be just ever so slightly more influencing to them. Whereas the Defender is very hard on their convictions, but is not great at convincing people, but is good, better than average, at reading other people. Whereas the Warrior is, well, they're dumb as bricks. They're not good at reading people. They're not good at they're kind of average when it comes to convincing people, and they're easily influenced. So the Warrior, the melee character, is easy to push around by others. But they're also clearly the strongest character. So even if you can push them around, if they were to throw fists, I don't think anyone other than the Knight would be able to deal with them. So it's like, I can build personality from this. I would probably need a little more like time and thought to it. But I think we have the basics here. Now, of course, vitality and stamina I would need to turn into a stat system to convert it. But I at least have something to work with here. We haven't gone really for long enough, and I didn't think I would get to a point where I've run out of steam on what to say so early. Because I'm kind of just creating on the spot here. What are the averages, actually? 10... 23 divided by 4 is... five, and then the 3 left over, which is 30, so that's 5.6. Okay. Stamina 21, which would be 5.25, I think. Yeah. Strength is exactly 5, is the average. Mind, again, is 5. 23, which is 5.6. Um... 23, so that's 5.6 again. $19. Okay. Agility's the low one, which 4 goes into 19 4 times with 3 left over. Yeah. Which becomes 4.6. 25, which goes into 6 times with 1 left over. 4 goes into 10 twice with 2 left over. So you get, yeah. Okay, interesting. The lowest stat is movement, and the highest stat overall is guts. Which would, like, easily tell me that I should flip some of these stats around to some of the lower stats. So I might get rid of the 1 there, make that a 2, and make that a 3. So that becomes a flat 6. And this would become a 5.25. If I was to take the point here and move it there, so that 6 becomes 7. That becomes 5.25. And that becomes 4. And that 6 becomes a 5.6. And I think that's fine. Because that means that both the offensive stats here are the same. So there's no like favoring like magic versus melee per se. And it's like, yeah, characters are generally slower, but that just means that the enemy would get to move more often, or move first. The only way I could really see balancing that would be increasing the agility, which requires me to reduce either the HP, the soul, or the charisma of the melee character. And I don't see that happening, which would mean I'm increasing the speed of one of these two. I could actually reduce the HP of the mage to get that effect, actually. Go from a 4 to a 3, and increase them from a 5 to a 6. So that becomes a 5 overall, and that goes down from a 5.6 to a 5.25. So that balances everything out a little. Hmm. I'll probably go over this later and I can tweak it, but that's giving me a basic idea. But that means for the player character, the stats that had the most overlap, which were Soul, Charm, that is not the right way to do that. Charm and Gut, or Will, or whatever the hell I end up calling it. These ones had the most overlap. All of them, however, like this one has no effect in battle at the moment. And this one is a passive, for the most part, works as a passive stat. So putting points into it doesn't affect things too much. This one is probably useful regardless. And Soul or Empathy, I haven't exactly decided how it works, but it affects healing. So if the player doesn't have D in their party, and I think the only other ones that were good at healing were maybe and possibly. So if the player character ends up needing to be the healer, they need to put points into that. Into the soul stat. So it doesn't mean any particular stat is bad or good. So now it's time to get into the mechanic that I kind of want to do and is going to be the most annoying. And that is AP. So my thoughts, instead of having a standard thing, is AP has a number of units. That deplete. So it's similar to how like Fallout does it. An action costs... Sorry, I am trying to think and write at the same time. An action costs X amount of AP. And you can continue to do actions until you have 0 AP left. That is really hard to... I need to space it. I might do the line through 0. Now, the only thing that could stop this would be if an action has a end turn prompt. So the example would be guard. So if you were to guard, you would stop your turn and you'd have leftover AP. So that means that the AP left holds over to the next turn. Oh my god, I cannot write. Which means that you gain Y AP every turn. Now, I don't know exactly how I want to do it. Whether Y should equal 1, or it should equal half the AP, or depending on what actions you did the previous turn, the amount of AP that you gain back. For example, let's say you did 6 actions. I'm just going to go act. Then Y gets divided by 6. Or each action has its own weight value. That's the way I want to do it, just because it means that characters that can do a lot of actions characters that have a lot of action points can either perform a lot of actions, or they can do actions that cost a lot of action points. So, for example, spells. High cost. Like, that is one way to balance things. Or spells end turn. But this ultimately means that I can have it where the player can play a lot of actions, or they could do one action and then pass the turn to someone else. So long as you have actions in play, you can control the turn order by that is they can control the turn order by passing. So passing would end their turn, so you can't just endlessly pass back and forth, but it means that slower characters can go earlier. So for example, let's say this is a turn order list. Let's say you had the warrior is first in the turn order, because he's the fastest character. And then down here, the healer is 6th for some reason. Passing overrides that. They're now 2nd. So it's a way to make slower characters faster. Now, I probably shouldn't allow the enemy to do the pass system normally, but it means that once it's their turn and they've performed an action, they cannot sorry, I need to change the color for that. They cannot pass back. So they could pass to anyone else in the list. For example, the person in 3rd here. they could pass to them, skipping whoever was originally second. This, just in my own mind, makes passing a very powerful mechanic. So it should come at a cost to your AP. Even though you don't do anything. And I think it would have to be a specific skill that the character needs to unlock. It's similar to, you know how Persona 5 has like the pass system. If you do a special attack, instead of getting your bonus action, you can tag off to another party member. That's essentially what this is without that, the necessity to do the special attack or the super effective hit. You can just pass to someone else. But I think it would have to depend on what Y is and total AP. So let's say passing costs your max AP divided by, let's be generous here and just say 2 to start. So if you had 6, so with the max 6, it would be free AP to pass. And that means that Y has to be less than half. If it was a third, then it would cost 2, and that means that Y has to be less than a third, which means that it would be, say, a quarter. Well, a quarter of 6, you'd have to round down, which means it would be 1 AP. So I think the best way to go would be to go half. It costs 3. And Y would be equal to 1/3 of your max. So in the case of 6, you would get 2 per turn. If you had 3, you would only get 1, but this would cost 2 to pass. Well, hang on. If you get 2 back at the start of the turn, that means that you've gone negative, that you've gone just +1. Well, no, you've gone -1. Minus your original action. I think by that logic, you'd have to make Y equal 1. So you naturally recharge 1 every turn. which means that if you use more than 1 AP each turn, you're slowly going to run out. But if it uses a half as hearing, it means that passing is a powerful thing, but you can't endlessly pass every turn. But again, we run into the same issue. So I think what the best thing to do would be, since I don't need to worry about that, say it's a third. And so that only costs 2 if you have 6. And that means the min starting AP should be free. So that would then equal 1 stamina. So for every point of stamina, if you were to increase it by 2, then 10 would be... 10 would equal 2 times 10 plus 3, which is 23, which is too much. It's always 3 plus X times Y. I forgot to put the -1 in. Because that would be Y. So that would be 9 times 2, which is still 18 plus 3, which is a nuisance. If X was, let's say, a sixth, so 0.6 times 10 minus 1, which is 9. 45, so that's 4.5 times plus 3, which we would round up. So that would be 5, so that would be 8. Would be the max. Uh, 4 times that, 2.4, which is 2, which means the average is 5. Okay, so if that's the case, then the max cost would also be 8. Which means I know no action can cost more than 8, and the only people that can use it would be those that have 10. The average was 5.25, wasn't it? So that means that realistically, the cost of any action is between 0 and 5. And since the max AP is 8, 8 divided by 3 is... 3 goes into 8 twice, 2 remainder goes into that. 6 times, so that'd be 2.6, you round up. So the max cost is 3 to pass. Three is less than our 5, so that's fine. So this system would mean that if you spend more points, you'd have to recharge later. But there'd be certain skills that you might be able to recharge more in order to quickly refill. That means characters that had higher stamina can use more powerful skills. I don't remember how AP was split up, but this should be fine. It's a nice, simple system. Unnecessary amount of drawing. HP. So HP has to be relative to damage. This is just a natural relationship. You can't be dealing more damage than the maximum HP. So that then brings me to needing to do the damage formula. Well, we know that defense is a resistance, so damage is simply power times offense, as we have a magic modifier, or potentially. So that's the gross damage. We then have the resistance, which reduces it, which is a value between 0 resistance and, I probably want to say no more than 50%. That is not how you spell that. Resistance. Which should be a range from the math that RPG Maker does it, 100% to 50%, ideally. So you'd have your natural resistance to the damage type. So that would be physical / magic plus element. And then that would get us to the net damage. And then that is where our HP would be. So that means I need to work out power and offense. Until I know those two values, I really shouldn't set a max HP value. If I'm able to do multiple actions in a turn, that means that I want damage to be lower. Because I know that in a single turn, one character can perform 8 acts max. Though I don't think any of the characters can. The player character can still do that. Which is 8 basic attacks, which means that is 8 net damage applied in a single turn for a single character potentially. So if I consider that an enemy may have no resistances, I won't worry about weaknesses. But if they have no resistances, that's 100% damage, which would be multiplied by 8, which would mean that they would be taking 8 times the base damage from a single character before the turn is out. The average, again, was 5, which is still 5 times the basic damage, so let's say the basic attack is their offensive power, the power would be 1. Which means it's whatever their offense is. Let's say that their strength is divided by 2. So that would be their maxed offense without a weapon would be 5. Which would be 5 times 5, which is 25 damage in a single turn. Yikes! That's without a weapon. That's scary. Okay, let's say we divide the attack their strength by 3 to work out their base. So that would be So at 10, that would be 3. At 5, 5 divided by 3 is 2 with a remainder, so that would be 2. And 1 over 3 is technically 0. So that would be 3, which would translate to 3 times 5, which is 15. So dividing it by a third reduced the damage from a single attack, or just bashing them 5 times in a row, by 10%. If the power went to 2, that would be 3 times 2, which would be 6. And if the cost doubled, which means it would be 2 AP, you could only perform it twice, which would go to 12. That's a problem. That's a problem. Because I need to consider the player character could have maxed out their stamina and their strength stat. If they had maxed out both, that would be 8 times 3, which is 24. And even if it cost it 2 times, at the power of 2, 6. If it costs them 2, they'll be able to perform 4 attacks. 6 times 4 is also 24. Yep, that is a problem. Well, let's just see. If it was back at 5, you'd be looking at 10. And then 10 times 2, which is 20. And then look at the relative difference. That is a difference of 5. That is a difference of 3. If I was divided by 5, you'd have 2 and 1 as your base attack. Base attack. Oh god. If you were to do it as 2 as 1, that would be 2 times 5, which would be 10. And then when you multiply that, that's 4. And then 4 times 2, which is 8, which is still 2 behind. I think the problem is letting them attack more than once. I think you'd have to say you can only perform one damaging move, but you can perform self-buffs beforehand. I don't know. I don't know. The problem is definitely if I allow them to do more attacks. That difference is going to be the forever problem. Because as their offensive power increases, it becomes more effective to attack, do the basic attack more times than it would be to do the higher one. I'm not sure. I need to take another break. And I'll think on this a little more. Okay, yeah. The issue is definitely allowing them to act multiple times in a turn, particularly attacks. So let's say that there are... Hang on, I'll clean things up a little bit. Let's say that there are actions, or act. Under that subcategory, you have attacking, which you have a limit of 1. You can use items. You can guard. Which ends the turn. What is ET? You can run away from battle, so that is flee. Which I think obviously is going to end the turn as well. You have pass. Which, because it's starting someone else's turn, has to end yours. So that's another end turn action. And then you have skills. So other than items and skills, everything you can only do once, or you end the turn after doing it. So I think it should be you can only perform one action. The reason I say that is if you perform an attack and then go, oh, I'll pass it to an ally, or you perform an attack and then guard, that seems a bit bonkers. I think there are skills that may allow for extending the number of actions you can do. Like maybe you can attack twice if you have a skill that allows you to perform it twice. But that attack will always cost the 1 AP. So you have to unlock the ability, because if you don't do that, the damage thing is going to get out of control fast. But we know that if the basic attack is a power of 1, and the offense will go by the divided by 3 is 3, that means that your gross damage would equal 3 per turn. And if every character could do max damage, that would be multiplied by 5. Which means that your base damage from every character with max stats, which is impossible, but whatever, would be 15. So starting health needs to be greater than 15, which means our HP stats should start from 20 at least. So they survive 1 turn. Now I'm not sure how much you should multiply it by. Oh, I've used M twice, I can't do that. But it also means that I should grant increments of HP relative. If the base is 20, so 1 equals 20, what would 10 be? If you consider that it was plus 5 from the 15, then 10 times 5 would be 50. So that would be 65 starting off. That's ridiculous. If I was to make it 2, then it'd be 9 times 2. 9 twos at... Brain? Where did you just go there? 9 twos at 18, which would mean that the starting health would be 38. That's not terrible. It's not too outlandish, and 20's a pretty manageable one to start off. So you'd have a range of 20 to 38. And then it's growth. So that's the base. Then you'd have the growth. How much does it increase? If I was to use the D&D example and do it on dice, you'd have D4 up to a... I think the highest one they use is a D12. And then just take the average. That would be 2, 3 for the D6. The D8 gets 4, D10 averages 5, and the D12 gets 6. So that would be a growth of 2 per level, or 2 per increment, and that would be 8. Since the attack isn't going up, but damage does, the max I'd say is... If I make it an odd number, let's say 15, 30, so that would mean that the max is 50 for the low end. And the max for the high end is 38 times... is 6 times 15, which is 3, carry... 90... 128 at the high end. That's a lot. I don't think I need to go that high. That was 15 levels. If I only went... Oh no, wait. 15 would only be 14 times, so no. that would mean that the max would be 15 upgrades. So yeah, no. What if we did 10 upgrades only? That would be 40. That would be 98. What is double? Be 6? No. 76. So if I aimed for 80, so 80 minus 38, 242, which is 7. So if I wanted the max to be 80, means that you get 7 increments. 7 twos are 14, which brings it to 32. It's not enough. Let's increase it to 3. Seven threes are 21, so that would bring it to 41. Let's say I aim for 40. So that would be 20. So 7 times x equals 20. X is 20 over 7, which goes... 7 goes into 20 2 times with 6 left over. So that's 7 goes into 68 times with 4 left over. And 7 goes into 45 times with 5 left over. And goes into that 7 times with 1 left over, and goes into that once with 3 left over, goes into that 4 with 2 left over. And goes into that twice with 6 left over. And so we've repeated. So if I go 2.8, just to try to keep it simple for the math. .8 times 7 is... I need to clear this stuff off. 2.8 times 7. 7 8s are 56. Put down the 6, carry the 5. 2 7s are 14, plus 5 is 19. Is 19.6. You round the 6 up. There's our 20. Awesome. 2.8 passes. Six minus 2.8 is 2, and then that's 5, so it's 3.2. .2 divided by 9 is an annoying number, so I'm gonna get the calculator out. I'm done trying to do the math in my head. 3.2 divided by 9 equals 3.5 recurring, and then times that by 4 plus 2.8, 4.2. So five times 2 is 10, so that means that no, wait, 4, you minus 1. 4 times 2 is 8, so the average is about 28. The growth is 4.2, which means that the max is 4.2 times 7, which is 14, carry the 1, 7 fours, 28, plus the 1 is 29, 7, carry the 1, 57. Because it doesn't round up. That means the average HP stat is 57 at the max upgrade. I hate it. I hate it so much because it's an odd number. Oh. Hey, cat. Hope you have a good day. Oh, dear. Crazy person doing math. I think that's fine. I'm pretty sure nobody had a HP value of 1. I think the lowest was 3. So that should be fine. If the player character for some reason put a 1 in vitality and decided to do it no upgrades and play the whole game through with 20 HP, that's on them. But this now leaves me with the very interesting problem of they have a strength value and an attack value, and those things are two separate things. Because we know what strength equals on attack. Because this is where things get wonky. Because your attack is the strength value. Divided by 3 equals base attack. Or we'll just call it B attack, which means that B attack times 3 should equal strength. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Okay, so the divide by 3 rule, we have average, high, low, and poor. Because that's the rounding. So let's say that 3 groups, high equals 8, average equals 5, low equals 2. So you have high grade, average grade, or low grade. I guess we should call it mid grade. So high grade attacks, you need a stat of 8. Mid grade, you'd need a stat of 5. Low, you'd need a stat of 2. So that means if you have a stat of 1 in attack, you can't use any like low grade weapons. So that means I need to at least consider poor grade items. That is so weird. So remember, HP, the base value we were looking at 20 up to 40. That means that for weapons, with a base stat of 3, and you should not be able to take out someone with a single attack in one action. Hmm. 20 minus 3 is 17, which means the highest value you could go would be 16 in an idealistic world. So for poor, you'd at least need to add 1 to something. And the highest you could reasonably do would be 16 to something. Uh, 16 divided by 4 is 4, so 12, 8, 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, 13 to 16. So just for logic reasons, high can grab all of them. Low can only do those ones. So if you had an attack value of 7, sorry, if the strength value was 7, they could only, the best attack value they could get would be a plus 12. Plus their base 2 means that they could get, the highest attack value they could get would be 14 attack. And someone of strength 2 would start with a base of 1, and they can only get an 8. I've written them down differently. Doesn't matter. Which means they can only have a 9 in attack. So just to look at the difference there, at their base it's a difference of 1, their max is a difference of 5. And that would be the same there. 16 plus 3 is 19, 19 to 14. Yeah. So it's a 1 to 5 difference. Unless they went for like the lowest grade weapon they could have, which would be, low would be a 5, and then before, so it'd be a, no, it's still a 1 point difference. At least there. High to mid, 14, 16, yeah. So that would be the average difference in attack value, but it means that I need to consider attacks based on their grade, whether they're high, average, or low, which means skills should be made for average and high grade. Cool. I think I've got enough here to work with, actually. I'm probably going to end stream and put some of the stuff that I worked out into tables, so that when we do this again next time, I'll have like a bit more fleshed out idea. I definitely feel like I've got a good thing going here. This was more just me like having a chance to flesh some of these ideas out on stream. I'll probably use some of this for a video or something, but we'll see. Anyhow, I'm not gonna raid, I'm just gonna run. So yeah, laters. I'm gonna have to trawl through this in order to extract the relevant info that I want. Okay. I will see people tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be doing The World Ends With You, that's right. And I got a couple of other things that I want to do before the week is out, so yeah, we'll be doing World Ends With You tomorrow. Brain. World Ends With You tomorrow. Wednesday I'll be out, so no stream. Thursday we'll be doing Half-Life again, and then on Sunday I'll be back to do Fallout. Hopefully I'll have done the necessary bit for that when we get there. But yeah. Okay. Bye now.